people in general. So I get it completely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for for being a guest on Another Dating Disaster. We were talking with Miss Casey Thompson. It's your girl Kimmy So Brooklyn here.
You got Candace Lauren on the line, and
And we are, yes, go
go ahead.
ahead.
I was gonna say, and we have a special guest, Casey
Yes.
Thompson, but her Instagram handle says the Hitch Bitch. So
Yes.
definitely glad to have you on the show. Feel free to share who you are, your background, and we can just get into it.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much, ladies. I am honored to be a part of this podcast. I know we were, chit-chatting before we hit the live button, and I was just like, oh, we're about to get into some good, talking about relationships in general. So, geez, okay, where do I start? Clearly with my whole life story, right? So, I mean, of course, you guys know me on social media as the Hitch Bitch, but that is clearly, my author persona. And one of the things that inspired me to write my book, The Hitch Bitch's Guide to Going from Fiance to Badass Boss Wife,
Yes.
was really thinking about what it means to be in a long-term relationship and what are the things we need to do as women to prepare ourselves if marriage is the pathway for us. So just a little bit about myself. So by day, I am a consultant, and I work for a large Washington, D.C. based consulting firm. My background is in organizational change management and strategic communication. So by day, I am working with large organizations, really within the public sector space, to help them manage change. So when you're thinking about anything from an employee level, if you're thinking about something from a reorg, new processes, there's a lot that's going on, from a social justice aspect when you think about equities and systemic racism. Well, there's a lot of change that's going on that's impacting the federal government and looking at, ways to really build impactful changes for underserved and marginalized communities. So one of the things that I do every day is work on helping with that transition. How do you really focus on working with employees, working with organizations in general, being able to make those major transitions and transformations as it relates to people, and really making sure that you can have some sort of sustainable and impactful change. So I know that that's kind of really high and pie in the sky, and you're probably like, all right, well, you do all this change management stuff. Like, what does that actually mean? So one of the things, so like I said, my background is in change management. And so what that means is really helping people go from a current state to a future state and being able to minimize any challenges or barriers that are kind of along that journey. So I've been within the industry for about 20 years. And to tie that to relationships, I met my husband actually after a series of bad dating encounters. And it was one of those things where I was like, I met him at a game night in Washington, D.C. And I literally was like, at the point where I was like, here, take my number. I don't even care.
That feels like me right now.
That is me right now. That's literally me right now.
You can call me if you want to. I don't care.
It's whatever you want to do, I guess.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Now he was fine. I was like, okay, he's fine. Like, so I hope he calls me. But if he didn't, I was like, it is what it is.
Right.
And so that's where I was at. When I met my husband, things just really felt different. And, initially you can't really explain what that feeling feels like when you meet who that person is. Like, certainly you can, have a connection with someone, but when you really know that a guy is different for you, your whole aura just changes. Like, you're
That's
just
right
like,
here. Yeah, I'm
like,
excited for that.
like this is it. Like, you'll know,
Yeah.
it. You will know it. When people used to tell me that back in the day, I'd be like, nah.
Seriously.
But
I'm hearing it so much now that I'm like, wait, that's a thing.
It is. And at first, because I have talked on several other podcasts, I also talk about it in my book about how I personally self-sabotage myself due to the toxic relationships. And I just would do things, to try to, because things would be going so well. I'm like, this is too good to be true. How do I, basically sabotage like this
Yeah.
path that I'm on because I'm so used to being unhappy. So it was one of those things, and I'm going to get back to, what my actual day job is from a consultant perspective. I realized that after dating and once we got engaged, that I had a hard time transitioning from being, and a lot of women don't necessarily talk about that. And I'm talking from the female perspective, but I know that men also have a hard time transitioning because, you're doing all this dating, and you're like, okay, well, I'm looking for the one. You finally find the one, and you're like, yes. You start planning your wedding. You're like, yes, now let's get married. Then boom, now what? Like, how do you really transition from being single, being independent, having a good time, to being a fiance, to being someone's wife?
Agreed.
And then potentially, a wife with a husband, 2 kids, 3 kids, whatever. Like that is a lot to digest. And I will say for myself, it scared me because I was like, all right, it's one thing for me to be single and independent, but this man is actually marrying me. I'm viewing this as a lifetime commitment, but I'm not prepared for this change. And so what I did with the book was I developed a change management process for women. And my audience is primarily African American women, just knowing who we are internally and a lot of the things that we struggle with, but just knowing how strong we are as women, trying to make something that was customized for us in terms of, what those paths might be from a standpoint of moving from single to being married. So I created this 5-step process that's tied directly to a lot of business principles in terms of how you help transform organizations, how you help manage cultural changes. And I took that and I applied that to what my own journey was. And it took me a minute. It wasn't until I was a couple years into my marriage that I was like, wow, if I had had a change management process on how to, evolve from being single to being engaged to being a wife, I'm not saying it would have been easier, but I think that I would have been able to prepare myself better for what that journey was. So that's what inspired me to write the book, was to be able to share stories about women that had similar experiences as I did, newlywed, to those that had been married for some time, and help women really on that journey. So
And you're touching on so much because the evolution is the important part. We're not the same person we were as we were independent of anyone else at 20, as we are at 30, as we are at 40. And then now you're throwing another human being into the mix. And to touch on also something else you said, you don't realize that you're self-sabotaging, right? I can see it maybe as a friend, if Candace might do something, or Candace might be able to see if I do something, but sometimes we need to really sit with ourselves and recognize when that is. I'm super guilty of that. Like, I'll sit and talk to somebody for a while, then all of a sudden an argument starts for something. I'm like, I don't want to talk to them anymore. I don't like them anymore. Not realizing, Kim, it's you. Like, are you scared to actually be with somebody full time? And it's like, these are the things that we need to have the conversations with ourselves about. But then, and I don't know if that's something that you're going to get to, like, how do you, as an adult, like most people, they don't actually have accountability, right? And I hate to admit that, or some people don't, they just don't. So what could people do not to say to themselves, like, okay, wait, it's not necessarily a blame game, but let me take a step back and see what's going on. Is that a thing? Can people do that?
yeah, absolutely. That is literally one of the first steps in this 5-step process that I put together. It really is a time of self-reflection and really understanding and embracing all of the emotions that you go on when you're married or thinking about getting married. I mean, what we always see on social media is everybody knows how to show you that fabulous engagement party that they had or amazing proposal, and there's so many of them out there that are beautiful, but behind the scenes you've got people that are like, oh my God, should I really be getting married? Am I ready for that? Or not even addressing some of the important things that you need to be talking about to prepare you. So, do you have trauma that you have not resolved? Are you being fully transparent? Are you talking about, understanding really what deal breakers are? And that's one thing I try to talk about a lot on my social media account is, are you having those tough conversations about, family, children, finances, how you guys want to have your sex life, how do you maintain that intimacy, and really how everything has its own intersectionality. And so, that was one of the things that I had to learn to sit with, because when I knew I wanted to get married to my husband. And we recently celebrated our 10-year anniversary, actually.
Congratulations.
So thank you. Thank you. When we first got engaged, I literally I was so excited. I was just like, yes, I got the ring. And then I immediately started to feel sick. I just felt like I'm nauseous. Like, what am
That's
I
a
doing?
life-changing moment. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm like, am I ready? Like, what's going to be expected of me? I mean, I had my parents didn't have the best relationship. They were separated. I had a lot of family members that were divorced, so I didn't really see. The only people that had in my opinion, a solid, healthy relationship were my grandparents. But when you get married, back in the 1940s, you cannot compare that to getting married in the 2000s, 2020.
Not the same at all.
My grandmother's love, is not the same type of love that we're dealing with right now that me and my husband have. I'm not saying that, it doesn't have similarities, but it's a completely different time frame, and it can and completely different, to me, field that we're navigating right now.
Right.
Well, there are
We have
things.
other things to be distracted with now. It was each other all day.
Look, you got options. You were just worried about your little community. Now you can talk to somebody in Dubai, LA, Nebraska. It doesn't even matter. And you're like,
Exactly.
Were there specific things that you did, that you wanted to, I guess, have grounded before you got engaged or married, like as a single woman? Or are there things that, for our audience, because most of us are single or maybe dating seriously, but are there certain things that, or checklists that women should have before they are even considering getting engaged or married?
yeah. So I don't necessarily have a checklist to kind of be like, boom, like you're done. About that. Like, okay, good. Now we make it to, this particular
I'll be
juncture.
a fiance tomorrow, right?
Exactly. But I really think that it's just making sure that there's nothing that's off limits. Like, you should be able to feel comfortable talking to your significant other about any and everything. And for me, the two biggest things that I was concerned about going into marriage was having children and also finances. And a lot of that for me, I know, stemmed from just my upbringing, experiences that I had observed. I knew that I was like, when I go in and I'm getting married, how can I make sure that you're going to be with me forever, that we're not going to get separated? Like, if I have kids, do I have to be mentally prepared to raise these kids by myself? And the reason I say that is because that was my experience growing up, where my mom, was married to my dad. But since my dad was in and out of the picture, it was pretty much like we were being raised by a single mother.
Right.
So, in going in with that baggage, I had to say, okay, like, do I need to prepare myself? How do I know that you're not just like spitting good game to me now, and then 10 years from now or whatever, like you're out the picture. And so it took a minute, for me to feel comfortable. Like we were married a couple of years before I even like really fully said, all right, let's think about like having kids. Like I feel comfortable. And that was certainly a pain point in our relationship. Like I won't even front. Like my husband was like, look, like we need to have kids. He's from Brooklyn, comes from a huge West Indian family. I know Kimmy's so Brooklyn, okay?
Yeah. and Jamaican. So yes, I get it.
Okay. So like I knew like that, like there was the pressure. Like everybody, when I would go up to New York, like for the holidays,
Oh yeah.
Thanksgiving, and we would come up there and it's like, boom, where's the baby? Y'all been married? Like, what are y'all doing?
And they're not shy about asking,
Not at
which is
all.
crazy, but yes, they're not.
Not at all. But it was something that I just felt like, I need to feel comfortable. And I think also in relationships, you have to make sure all parties are 100%. And I know that it was frustrating for my husband, for my fiance, then my husband, at first to be like, all right, how long do I wait this out? Because that was a deal breaker for him. So my deal breaker was, if you cheat on me, I will divorce you. Like, I'm not doing the therapy thing. Like, I don't care. That's my deal breaker. For him, he's like, if I don't have kids, that is my deal breaker. We will, whatever. So it was one of those things, though, that we both were patient with each other, and he was patient with me because honestly, when you have children, I've got two right now. I've got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old that's going on 26, 36, 46 at any given time. But I just knew I had to be prepared, like, because when you're a parent, like you can't just cut that on and off. You got to be in it to win it. And I was like, if I'm going to have kids, I don't want to be like this part-time mom or disconnected. I want to be okay, comfortable, and happy that I've got my children and I'm a present mom. And so, that was something that my husband had to work with me on, to be like, all right, he's like, I'm here, but how do I wait for my wife to get to where I'm at? And he did. And so certainly our kids drive us up a wall. They're downstairs right now, probably driving him up a wall right now, as they prepare for bedtime. But it was something that we were willing to do together. And that was also something that we talked about, initially in our relationship, as one of the checklist items. But it took some time. And then also the other one was finances. Like, how are we going to manage them? What are our financial goals? Are we looking to be homeowners? Are we looking to, do XYZ investment? How much debt do you have? Like, how are we going to accumulate wealth? And I think, by not just thinking, oh, we'll tackle those later on, we tackled those ahead of time. That has really helped ease conversations and kind of set the tone for our relationship in marriage by having those conversations, and at least those two checklist items for me.
And those aren't easy conversations too. Like I think people sometimes they kind of say, are you a spender? Are you a saver? And like, that's the end of it. Not realizing like, no, these are conversations that have to happen over time. It is not something that you're just some people probably didn't even think about it. They're not even thinking, wait, am I a saver? Am I a spender? Am I bad with my money? Am I good with my money? Do I budget? Like you just know what you know by yourself. But now when, again, you're introducing somebody else, like people have to understand, like these are conversations that might be uncomfortable, but they have to happen. And they have to be these deep enough questions, right, that are really get into the core of a person's beliefs around whatever, the topic may be. And then this one, if it's finances, not just saying, hey, do you have money in the bank? Do you have a saving and a checking? And, how does that work?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
a
lot of marriages break up, because of finances. Like that's the top three: finances, compatibility, sexual compatibility, infidelity. Like those are literally the top three reasons. And certainly there's no way you can monkey proof this. Like,
right.
Has like this thing figured out. So if you hear somebody, an expert or whatever, saying, oh, no. Nobody has it figured out. Nobody.
Right. Just to back up a little bit, just to get from being single to being the hitch bitch? Was there, outside of, and I know you spoke to it, but like outside of this, not self-sabotaging, what were some of the things that you think? Because again, I think, well, Candace and I are both at the point that you described of just being like, all right, fine, here's my number, call me if you do, if you don't, I'm fine either way. Like, was there an attitude shift? What do you think shifted for you? Granted, it did work out in that moment that, you have to give your number to your husband, but do you think even while dating him, there was a transition in you or something that helped you along? Or
Yeah, but I will say yes. It took me time though. Like I was so hardened by the horrible dating relationships that I
mm,
had, in addition to just kind of seeing how my parents' relationships, because again, all of this is baggage that you're bringing with you.
so
Um,
therapy,
yeah, okay, I have a
however, no, however you do
yeah.
it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I have a therapist. I am a big advocate. Like, if you feel comfortable with that, the same way you take care of your body, take care of your mind.
That's
So,
true. You go to the doctor, right? So,
exactly. Yeah, you need somebody to help you work through all your stuff.
I do have a question, kind of shifting gears though. You also
Yeah.
posted something a couple weeks ago about sort of, it was almost another checklist. I'm a fan of checklists, but ways to sort of maintain your identity. I don't know if you can kind of speak to that. I know the post was kind of related to, while you're married, but I think some of it is still applicable for those who are dating or in a serious relationship. How can we still be who we are? Because I will never forget one of my old coworkers at a former job. She posted something on Facebook, and she said, before I was a wife and a mom, I was Aletha, and I really miss her. And
mm,
that post really stood out to me, even 10 years later, because I'm, as I got older, I'm like, I never want for me to be a mom and a wife and that just be my life. I still want to be able to be Candace and, still have me. And I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of women lose that. And it scares me actually, because I don't want to put my kids first. I want to put me first, because I can't be the best mom or wife if I'm not, taking care of me. So if you can speak to that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll give you an honest answer. It's a balancing act, and what I've realized in my 10 years of marriage is that it hasn't necessarily been a constant. So there's been some times where I have felt that I've had to put certain things first and kind of put myself second or third, but that has also been a conscious decision. Like I'm not going to tell you like, oh, always make time for the spa. Like if you do that, and that works for some, but I'm not going to give you any like superficial answer to be like, just do brunches. Like, yes, that works. But in the real world, that does not always happen depending on where you're at in your life. Like where I'm at right now, I've got two little kids. I've got a 5-year-old, I've got a 2-year-old. So, in terms of me, like say earlier on in my relationship where we were, traveling the world, we were going out, with friends, we were able to sleep in and do different things. I was able to certainly have more of my identity and because I had that flexibility. But, right now where I'm at in my life, I have different priorities and they've shifted. So, I have had to put, my children first. But for me, I'm okay with that. If you had asked me that like 10 years ago, I would have been like, like it's got to be all about me because that's where I was at. But, in terms of where I carve out things that are important to me, like this book right here was me embracing my identity, being honest, like in your face, like like this is me,
right.
and I felt that in terms of me sharing, what my experience was, it was part of my journey, my identity to be true and authentic to my readers, to let them know that nobody has this figured out. We're all going through something, but here's some advice and ways to kind of help you along that journey to make that transition easier. Additionally, even though I did jokingly say, oh, just do a brunch or do a spa day, like that is also very important.
Right.
I'll be honest, sometimes like sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't have time to do that because maybe I'm just so bogged down in work. Like I know when Candace and I were going back and forth, I was like, please, can we move this podcast out? Just because I had so much. I was like, I want to do it, but I wanted to make sure I could have a thoughtful conversation with you guys. And so, I mean, sometimes preserving my identity is like just carving out some time for myself to do things that I like. And that might be just sitting on the couch, like late at night, watching Hallmark movies or Golden Girls
Oh
or
my God, I love that.
Real
So
Housewives.
is me. I am like the queen of Hallmark, and Golden Girls is in rotation. You
Right.
would think that Golden Girls is like a new season right now, the way I watch it. Like they're new episodes, but it's not. It's just the same classics.
Right.
When I tell you the writers were brilliant on that show, like
No,
when
hands down.
okay,
Hands down. Because it's still laughable today. Like it did not lose any edge anyway. Yeah.
exactly. So I mean, so that's what I do. Like right now where I'm at, like do I, sometimes is my, preserving my identity, like doing this podcast, like, staying true to my professional passion of, certainly like looking to advance from a corporate perspective, keeping my eyes on the prize with the book. Like my goal is to, and I'm going to speak this into existence and manifest this, but I want to do a series of books. So this is like the first one, but I know there are many other topics that I can continue to expand on, and that helps me preserve my identity because one of the things I love to do is write and communicate. So it's going to be maybe a little bit trickier to balance, but it's something that I'm committed to doing and trying to find outlets to do that. Yeah.
Right. So essentially you define what boss wife, boss mom looks like and what works for you. And so we would define, so to speak, like even to what you were saying, Candace, I guess you try to help to define, for the example you use Althea, like she needs to figure out how to be that boss mom or Althea the mom or mom the Althea, like in which direction she wants to put it. But you have to still find yourself in that and not get lost in it and make it so that you're like, I'm a mom, Althea. I'm Althea the mom. Like you have to define what that might look like for you. And I think, yes, a lot of us do get lost in it. Even some of us get lost in dating. Some, you lose friends when they start dating too. And so you're like, wait a minute. That's when you have to start recognizing if you're that person and you're like, okay, wait, I have to still be Kimberly, just, even if I might be dating somebody, and make time for your friends. I think, Candace, you're actually pretty good at that. So even if she's dating, she'll still make herself available and she'll still have things at the house, which is really, really great. So that's something that folks can learn from you, Candace.
Yeah. And I will also say I have a really awesome husband that is supportive of me. So, there have been a couple of times where I've done girls trips because those are really important. So two of my close girlfriends from college, we went to Costa Rica this summer. So we spent a few days out there, it was an amazing time. Then I came back. I felt like I'm a better person than I was when I left.
Yeah.
But it was important because one of the things I love to do that's part of my identity is to be able to travel, be with amazing people, and, continue that going. I feel like if that's stifled, then I feel like that's not me. Like I can't.
Right.
Like, so, but my husband is supportive. So I also say, when you're looking for a partner, really look at how they support you and show up for you while you're dating. If you get vibes that they're not going to support you in terms of the things that you want to do, that is very telling. Like my husband's been like this since day one.
Right. That's awesome.
Is there any, I guess, recommendation that you would say how, I guess, women can better weed out when they're dating? I know we had Coach Cooch on the call a couple weeks ago, and she made a good point about dating men in their seasons. And then Kim, one of your good friends, shout out to Kills, she kind of mentioned asking qualitative questions instead of quantitative questions. So are there things, or do you have any advice for single women to help peel back the layers as they're sort of vetting partners?
Oh, that's a good question. All right, let me take a second. How do you weed out the
you can get this, so we're good. We don't need to.
How do you weed out the losers and the bums and the men who live with their mothers?
The thing
Goodness.
It's the gamut.
I mean, the thing is, I think there are a lot of amazing men out there. I do think that it is a matter of timing and a matter of timing and a matter of compatibility and also being open to dating outside. So I think part of like we talked a little bit about the self-reflection, you know, self-reflection of who we are. But when you're thinking about it, are you dating the same type of guy, just different form? So really thinking about why are you kind of running into the same type of guy or having the same type of outcome? It literally sometimes is taking a step back and maybe putting a list together to say, okay, I dated these 5 guys. They all had this in common. And I think in doing that, you can find out that there's a specific pattern. And I say that because I tended to date guys that were pretty condescending to me initially. And it wasn't until I took a step back. And so I would date these guys that were, like I said, condescending, never really supportive. And so I had to take a step back and say, okay, why am I dating these type of guys? A lot of that was connected to the father figures, my dad that I had in terms of how they interacted with the women in their lives, how they also interacted with me. So when you're used to that, like sometimes you don't realize that you're just repeating patterns.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you take a step back and you're like, wait, I like to date this type of guy. Like, I mean, women were like, look, he's got to make this much. I want him to have this degree. Like, here's a great example. I have a really good girlfriend, and I know I'm probably jumping all over the place.
You're fine.
She's crazy smart. Okay. She's got a PhD. She's got like 3 masters, Ivy League, and met this amazing guy. They are married now. He was an attorney and everything and had no kids, like attractive, like did everything. And she did not want to necessarily entertain dating him for the long term because he was not Greek and part of the Divine Nine. Yes.
No way.
Yes. And this
Oh, wow. That's it. Now
yeah.
that's picky.
Girl, right?
Okay. But I'm just saying, I'm just using that as an observation of like thinking about taking a step back, reflecting on all of the men that you dated. Like she dated a lot of guys that, had these real amazing high powered careers, but they treated her like crap. But they happened to be part of Greek organizations. So when she looked at the pattern, she was like, wait, I'm trying to date the same type of guy, but they're not treating me the way I need to be treated. Then she dated a guy that was totally someone she would have never dated. He treats her so amazing. He's still got credentials, and he's phenomenal. And he treats her like a queen. But it was so hard for her at first to like get over that hump. So I think it's like, right.
I'm trying not to get crazies, and she's just worried about. I mean, I don't want to say just. I know it's a big part of culture, but I'm like, listen.
No, and you're right. Like, but women were always like, well, there's some women are like, well, he's not tall enough, or I really prefer somebody that has a degree, even though you can have a man that's working a blue collar job that makes more than a man that's working corporate,
Right.
business owner. And I'm like, man.
Well, should we lower? Because that post comes up a lot. It's funny. Me and Kim were talking about a post the other day where it was something along the lines of, Black women, made to feel bad for wanting a man who makes good money. And a lot of women I know make 6 figures, even more. And we're often shamed for wanting to date a guy who is, I guess, not blue collar or makes good money. But, you just kind of said maybe we should start to think outside the box. So how does that come into the fold where, we do want to get married? I hear what you're saying about being open-minded, but I don't know if I want to date the security man at Target. How do we sort of meet in the middle when it comes to situations like that?
Yeah, well, I will say this now. No, I think when you're thinking about guys, you're thinking about the quality of the man. How is he making you feel? So, for instance, when I met my husband, I literally was at what most people would probably say rock bottom. So when I met him, my mother was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. So I met him. I was just like, yeah, sure, take my number, whatever. But dated him for pretty much like 3 weeks, maybe a month. I had to call him and be like, look, I have to go back home. My mom has a couple weeks to live. Like, I got to go be with her. So you can go on and date whoever you want to, but just know that I'm going to probably be wrapped up in this. So, because because we had a connection, he really wanted to be, supportive and be there. Like, he didn't know me from anything, but he ended up coming out. He came out to Cincinnati because that's where my mom was and where I was there for the memorial service, and basically was just there to be supportive, and to just be the amazing person that he was. And so, when you're thinking about that, regardless of if he was the Target security guard to if he was working Wall Street, for
Right.
me, it didn't even matter. It was
Right.
like, this man is here for me, supporting me. And by no means, like, so my husband, he does happen to have an Ivy League degree. But that is not one of the things that, you know, drew me to him. It was
Right.
his compassion and his support, and it still is to this
Yeah,
day.
you brought that up. You brought that up way late. You talked about everything else about him before you got to that. So clearly, yeah.
Yeah. But also for Black women, I will never tell us, like, I will never say lower your standards if that's what you want. Like, if it takes you 40, 50 years to find what you're looking for, I say, stay true to you if you feel like that is going to make you happy. But what I do feel is that we sometimes have a view of, we want a Black man that comes in this particular package.
Right.
And like, your package may be an Asian man. It may be
I'm open to an Asian man too.
it may be another man of color. You know what I'm saying? It could be, someone that is a business owner. Maybe he owns, his own plumbing company, or, whatever the case might be. But I think that, again, you're looking for somebody that's going to rock with you, somebody that's going to support you through those challenging times, but also be there to celebrate the joys of life. And I think that, with life, you have these mountains, you have these valleys. And with my husband, he's been the person that has been able to ride with me through all of that. So that's what I would encourage women to do, is find somebody that is really going to be there, like, and be able to pick you up off the floor when you're crying, and help,
Right.
and make you be resilient. I could care less about somebody that's making, $500,000 or $1 million. Like, if you don't see me and you can't support me, then like,
You're gonna get cheated on.
yeah,
I mean, wow. I mean, you're just, like, seriously dropping gems here. I almost want to
Yeah.
ask, did you submit the Sierra prayer, or is there something that you need to share with our listeners?
Sierra fight Casey. What's my prayer? No, but no. Let me tell you. But let me tell you about Sierra. And me and my husband talked about her. My husband's name is Gilbert, by the way. We talked about her the other day, but Sierra learned, and that's one thing I love about Sierra, is that she could have stayed in that drama.
Yes.
That cycle of drama too, because she had a few just questionable relationships.
Okay.
Yes.
Like, a lot. And like, with the whole Future thing that was back and forth, and he has all those baby mothers, like, it was just like, how did this happen? Now you're looped into it, and now he's got you down in the gutter, girl. Like,
Yes.
going back and forth. But then you find Russell, he was like, nah, like, you found a man that was like, look, we're not about that life. If you're trying to, like, really be a part of something great, build our empire, don't deal with that drama. You might be used to it. You might feel comfortable, because a lot of times we're comfortable.
Yeah. Yes.
We feel good in the toxic, even though it's bad for us. We feel good. And
Or it's familiar. It's familiar. That's what it is. It's not even we feel good. I think you even said it with your husband. You kind of met this man and stepped into the unknown. You hadn't been there before because you had been so used to dealing with Future. I mean, not you specifically. Future,
okay,
Future likes.
Look, if you heard some of the men that I had dated, like, let me tell you, I was like, ain't no hope for me. There's no hope. Like, I mean, I was literally at my wit's end with my when I met my husband. I was like, if you call me great, it doesn't.
That's usually how it goes.
Yeah,
it's always the story. I feel like
well, that's why you got to stay open.
It sounds like Kim every day.
Yeah, but I think with Sierra was just like, look, I need somebody that's really, and I hope their relationship continues to work, grow, and blossom. I don't want them to be, one of those stories that we see that they've broken up. I really want to think positively about the union they have. But I think she found somebody that got her, and she figured, like, this is the life I want. I don't want to have this drama. I want to have that stability. I want to have somebody that's supportive. And she was able to reflect, take action, and do something completely different, because Future is not Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson is not Future.
Right.
At all. Would she have taught, you know what I'm saying? Like, Future is attractive, you know what I'm saying? Russell Wilson is attractive, but sometimes women will be like, I like the Future type more.
Yes.
I don't know if I can be with Russell. He's like goody two shoes. I need a bad boy. Okay.
Not me. I need a Russell.
I want Russell. Right.
Right. Russell's brother at this point.
Right. Cousin. Best friend. What you got?
Exactly.
Well, I know we're kind of wrapping up, but before we go, with every guest we invite on the show, because at the end of the day, it's called Another Dating Disaster. We ask all of our guests to share their biggest dating disaster. So he did what? And of course, the topic he did what kind of goes to Kim and I and some of our girlfriends.
Yes.
Different stories. What? And then, most of the reactions is he did what?
Right.
So every woman who has a he did what moment, and we'd love for you to share yours.
Oh my God. I have so many.
Everyone says that. Literally, everyone we interview, they're like, I have a million. We can talk all night.
I mean, all right. So the one that is sticking out to me, I should have known it was a setup from the start. So I live in the DC metro area. So I was at this place called a mall called Tyson's Corner Center. Mm-hmm. So I was there. I was in Bath and Body Works. This guy came up like into the Bath and Body Works. He was pretty attractive. Came up to me. Typical pickup line was like, hey, I need to buy something for my sister. Can you maybe make some recommendations? Okay, sure. Make some recommendations. He's like, hey, by the way, you're attractive. Do you mind if I get your number, take you out? So I was like, okay, cool. So we meet down in Georgetown, and he happens to be late, but I'm like, all right, it happens. DC traffic, not an issue. And so I should have known when I walked up on him, it was going to be a situation because of the way he was dressed. So he came with a like 90s windbreaker on.
And this was not in the 90s?
Exactly.
I need to know. Are we on our way to a 90s party?
No, and it was a white windbreaker.
Oh, and we're not going to a 90s party, right?
No, we were not. No, we were not.
Okay.
And had on these baggy pants and these chunky sole sneakers. And so I was like, all right. And I was dressed. I was real cute. I had on a tube top. It had like this cute peplum bottom and like whatever. I was cute. So either way, we go, we grab food, and the whole time, and we went to a place that didn't have numbers or not numbers, but the menu didn't have the food cost on it. So
man,
I don't even know if you need to finish.
Because it does get better.
I'm done.
So either way, we ended up having to split the bill. because he didn't realize how much everything was going to be. But I was like, okay, that's fine. But I was already kind of like in a mood anyway. And so he mentioned to me when we leave the place, he was like, you seem like you were a little bit more engaging. Talking to you is like watching paint dry. So I should have left when he insulted me. But again,
Right.
I'm used to that at that point. So I'm like, it must be like joking.
Was that after the bill?
Yeah, it was after the
Of
bell.
course.
I know. So then we end up going to the movies, and he was like, "Hey, let's go watch Da Vinci Code." So, like I said, this was a while ago. So we went to go see Da Vinci Code. I think it was the second one. I don't know. I didn't even want to see it, but we got to the movie theater, and he fell asleep in the movie theater and snored the whole time.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
I would have left.
I would have
while
left
he was
too.
there.
I actually would have left him there.
I know,
Yeah.
I should have. And so then after that, he was like, "Hey," I still didn't leave. We were done. And then we end up going to a lounge afterwards in Georgetown. Everything is good, having a decent time. Then he starts talking to another lady. I actually run into some friends. So we end up chit chatting while we're there. And they're like, "Hey, who you with?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm on a date." Next thing I know, he's talking to another girl. He ends up leaving with the girl.
That
Because
is
he's like,
No.
I think
No
you knew
way.
when he did what. I actually think
and then I saw him like a couple weeks later back at the mall again in his windbreaker, and he didn't say anything to me.
Good. Okay, good. Because what?
I'm just mad that I split the dinner with him. That's the only regret that I have. I should have made him pay. But yeah.
Honestly, that I've spent a lot of time in therapy, but situations like that would have Kim, I would have let him have it.
Yes, I know you would have.
I would
And
have.
that's why we're here on another dating disaster, because
I
that's
would
what we
have
do.
laid him. I probably would have. I would have hurt him so bad. His grandma would have felt it.
He has to go to
I
clean
go
his
straight for the
windbreaker,
jugular.
y'all.
Nope, I just let it go, and that's probably my problem. I was like, Godspeed to
So
you. I don't
she
even.
lets things go. I try to let things go, but something like that, I'm telling you, I really probably would have hurt his grandma's feelings.
No, you would have. You absolutely would have. If he would have left with, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, The Hitch Bitch. Can you show us the book again?
Yes, it's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. The Hitch Bitch's Guide to Going from Fiance to Badass Boss Wife. So you don't have to be a fiance to read the book.
Make sure you share your handle too.
Yes.
I will. It's at The Hitch Bitch on Instagram. I have been taking some time off, so I haven't been posting as much as what I have in the past. And then I'm also on Facebook if you guys want to follow me there at The Hitch Bitch. So.
Well,
Yeah,
there it is.
awesome.
Thank you so much for joining another dating disaster.
Yes, thank you so much. I've enjoyed the conversation, ladies.
Thank you so much. Kimmy So Brooklyn here.
Candace Warren.
And we are out.
Well, that was